All right, we're going to take another look at the XP30 and focusing on the front panel, we're going to look at some more of the performance controls. Now, the specific type of control and what they function or how they function is going to be pretty much related to this Roland XP30. But what I want to show you is that similar types of controls might be found on other synthesizers. What we're going to focus on, I'll zoom in here, are these palette controllers. And we'll talk about those in a minute. These are performance controllers, meaning they're added to the synthesizer to give you an extra level of control over a patch while you're playing it, which can bring a lot of life into a live performance. When you're playing, rather than using a static synthesizer patch, you can put your hands on these sliders and move them up or down to shape the sound as you play and make the instrument more expressive. Guitarists and brass players, woodwind players, they're able to shape the sound or the timbre of the instrument depending on how they play it. And this gives you a level of control, an additional level of control. We already have it discussed velocity sensitivity, pressure sensitivity, pitch bender, and modulation. This is just another way to get added control and sound shaping capabilities while you play. So again, the palette sliders on the Roland XP30. I have another synthesizer sitting here. It's not hooked up at the moment, but this is an Alesis QS6.1. It's several years old, and I just have this here just so that you can see other manufacturers have similar types of controls, but they just name them differently. These are just labeled controllers A, B, C, and D. And the synthesizer is not currently turned on, but if it were, we would see readout on the display listing the controllers. We could edit patches to make each of these controllers adjust a different parameter or a different part of the sound to make it more, again, to make it more expressive when playing in real time. So let's take a look at these palette slider controls on the Roland XP30. The patch I'm using for this demonstration is a synthesizer patch in preset E number 77. It's called DIST, which I assume is distorted, TB303. TB303 is a reference to an old Roland bass line machine. So that is what this patch sounds like. The thing to remember about these palette sliders is that each one has multiple functions. Each slider says C1, C2, C3, C4. Right. What those control depends on many things. First, what these sliders control depends on which of these associated buttons is pressed. The first one says filter envelope. That will cause slider C1 to control something called filter cutoff. And C2 will control resonance. Reso is short for resonance. C3 will control the attack. And C4 will control, well, it's labeled decay, but I'm going to be nitpicky here, and to my ear it functions more like a release control rather than a decay control. All right, so that's, again, what these four things will control if we light up the filter envelope button. I'm going to give demonstrations of all of these in just a moment. If we press this next button, the level controller, these four sliders, the same sliders, will control the level of four different components in the patch. Now that sounds complicated. You wonder what I'm talking about. There are the type of synthesis used here. There are four basic sound sources that can be combined to create the patches that we've become familiar with on this. And I can use this kind of like a mixing board to control the volume of each of those different sound sources that is being used to create the patch that's currently available. Finally, controllers these can be routed on a per patch level. I can edit the patch so that each slider controls a different function. One could control vibrato, one could control the velocity sensitivity, etc., etc. You can assign these to control different things. So when I do my demonstration here, you may notice that the controller sliders seem to control different parameters on different patches. That's not at all uncommon. These palette sliders and how they function, particularly in level and controller mode, can be different from one patch to the next. Okay, so what I'm going to do each time I change those palette sliders, I'm going to reset the patch. And the way I'm doing it, just so the patch settings are back to normal, I'm going to use the decrement. I'm going to go down one step and then back to the original patch. So any movement of these sliders previously will be undone. So here's what the thing sounds like. Because I'm holding the camera with one hand and playing the keyboard with another hand, and I don't have an additional hand to work the sliders, what I'm going to do is I'm going to engage our old friend the arpeggiator. And I'm going to get it to arpeggiate just a slow little pattern. Okay, so that arpeggio is going to keep playing. First, I'll engage the filter envelope button. And now we'll see what these sliders do. This is going to control the filter cutoff frequency or the brightness of the sound. Hold down, the cutoff frequency is set low, so it's kind of dull and muted. As I raise it, the sound gets brighter. So it's kind of fun. You could do a lot of fun effects in real time. The next thing I'm going to try is engaging some resonance. Now, if you experiment with this, be careful. Keep the volume low, because resonance will induce a loud whistling or squealing to the sound. So if it's turned up too loud, you can hurt your ears or hurt your speakers. So I'll start with the cutoff low, and I'll introduce a little resonance. Hear the whistling up and down. It's fun to get a little bit of resonance and then play with cutoff frequency. This, for obvious reasons, this effect is called sweeping a filter. Careful, because if you go too high, it can really scream, so be careful. Okay. The next one is attack. The attack is how quickly the sound reaches full volume level once the key is pressed. So as I raise this attack, you'll notice the sound goes from a plucked sound to more of a bowed attack. Slower attack. I'll get rid of the resonance, make it a little clearer. Down is faster attack. Up is slower attack. I'll turn off the arpeggiator for a minute, and I've got the attack all the way up. I'm going to reset that patch just to undo any of my filter changes. But I'm going to keep this very slow attack, and I'll play just a single note. And I'll let you watch me play this note so you can see how slow the attack is. Still growing, still swelling. So with a slow attack, it takes a long time for the sound to reach its full volume level. If I turn it down, I can have a slightly slower attack. All right, and here, this is marked decay, but to me it seems more like a release control. I'll put it all the way up, and I'll play a single note and let go. So even though it's marked decay, seems to be controlling the length of the release. These are fun to play with these in combination with one another. Inducing a little bit of a filter sweep, that whistling, with a slow attack and a long decay can be kind of fun. All right, so that again is these four. Reset that patch again, decrement, and then right back. That's the 4 sliders using filter envelope. Let's go now to level, and I'm going to get my arpeggiator going, and I'll just adjust the level. Again, you'll notice as I do it, I'm probably not going to talk so much while I do this next demo, but as I let these notes play, I'm going to adjust the 4 levels. Some of these sliders may do nothing at all, because that the sound generating component maybe isn't routed to that slider or some other reason. Some will have no effect, some will have an effect. So let's just listen and watch and see what happens. Aha, so that seems to be controlling that really biting part of the patch. Nothing. And this is controlling the more mellow part of the patch. So I could adjust the sound, both of them full volume, have more of the biting sound cut through by lowering this first slider, or more of the mellow sound cut through. Okay, so that's how the level controls work. Let's see now how these controllers work. Now these can be routed to most anything, so we'll just see how they're routed on this particular patch. Seem to be affecting the filter, it's less bright. That seems to be detuning or adding a chorusing type effect. Sounds like adding a little bit of resonance or something, I'm not sure. So you can really go nuts and have a lot of fun with these palette sliders. And again, the key thing to remember is the palette sliders will do different things with different patches and with different settings. The same 4 sliders are able to control multiple parameters depending on the patch programming, something internal that we don't have immediate control over, and the setting of these 3 buttons: filter envelope, level, or controller. That's it for this little tutorial.